what's up, everyone? My name is Joshua, and welcome to Conversations with Joshua T. Berglan. Today, we have an awesome guest, somebody who I interviewed maybe a year ago and had the absolute best time. And Terry Tucker is, he's a motivational speaker, so you would hope that he would motivate you and inspire you, but of course he does. He does all of that, but it's deeper than that. I've traveled with motivational speakers and business speakers. I've been on tour where I've been able to, not just speak and MC, but also help produce and see behind the scenes. And so I've seen a lot of people in this industry, and I've seen behind the curtain. So I know that, it's not always on the up and up. It's kind of like working in ministry. Look, there's some amazing churches, amazing churches. And there are some that, if you saw behind the curtain, maybe you wouldn't go back. And I can say the same thing for restaurants. If you've ever worked in the food service industry, there's times I'm sure you're going, I don't know why people eat here. Anyway, my point is this: Terry's the real deal. That's why he's back. I think Terry Tucker is one of the most inspiring people I've ever met. Our last conversation on Conversations, actually it was a conversation with Joshua T. Berglan. This is Conversations with Joshua T. Berglan. It's not that different, but I changed it anyway. I like to tinker with stuff. I'm a creator. I like to take chances. Not that changing this title was that big of a chance. Anyway, Terry's the real deal, super inspiring. He's a cancer survivor, but that's really just not what makes him awesome. His way of being is awesome. So I don't know what we're going to talk about today. The last time we got into his story, and, I'm sure that he's up to something. I'm sure he's written another book, or he's got a tour, or he's doing something. But he's always doing something neat. So I invited him back, going to have a conversation. I may hit on some current issues, current topics. I don't really know, to be honest. Oh, and I got paint all over my hands too. I've been painting the house outside in the cold for the last 5 hours. And so if I had any objective or any set thing that I was going to talk about today, that went out the window because my brain's tired and I want to have some fun while I'm doing this. And of course, my last conversation was fun. This one will be fun, but I don't know what to tell you, what to expect, because I have nothing planned. I'm just excited to see Terry, find out what he's got going on, and just get into it. So we'll see. But I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you've checked out the new platform at joshuatberglan.com or theworldsmayor.com. Either way, now that's getting ready to become a different website. But right now, the new platform is on joshuatberglan.com, and most of you know that because that's where you're watching from. So thank you for being here. And if you're watching on another platform, you can do the whole like, subscribe thing if you want. I don't really care. It's up to you. I know you're probably not supposed to say that, but I self-post. So if you're enjoying my content on another platform, God bless you. Thank you very, very much. But for all the people that are watching at joshuatberglan.com, I love you even more. Anyway, with that said, let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute pleasure for me to introduce to you my friend. Well, I don't know if we were friends. I really like the guy. He is somebody I would be friends with, even though I don't really have friends. But without further ado, please welcome the very inspiring, courageous, just awesome human being, Mr. Terry Tucker. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Conversations with Joshua T. Berglan, and I'm so honored today to have back the one and only Mr. Terry Tucker. Terry, I'm so happy to have you back. It's good to see your face again. How you doing today, man?
I'm great, Joshua. Thanks for having me back. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today.
Yeah, you're one of my favorite people that I've ever had on, and I think I told you before we hit record. I don't remember what we talked about last time, but I just walked away from it going, that is one of my favorite people on the planet. It's one of my favorite interviews. I love the conversation. So I'm glad to have you back. Before we get into the conversation, I'd love to know, what are you grateful for today and why?
I'm grateful today for what I'm grateful for every day, and it's what I call my 3Fs, which are faith, family, and friends. I've been battling a rare form of melanoma for the last 11 and a half years, and absolutely positively, without those 3Fs, I would not still be here. They are the reason I keep going. They are the courage, the strength that is put into my body from these people. I can't do this. I don't think any of us do anything in life by ourselves. These people and my God, they've gotten me to this point. I mean, there have been several times when I've been dead. I remember after I had my leg amputated, my oncologist showed me my CAT scan photos. And I have no medical background. I don't know how to read a CAT scan, but you can kind of look at it and boy, that doesn't look like it should be there, and things like that. And I had these big tumors in my lungs. I had fluid all around the pleural spaces of the outside of my lungs. And I remember looking at my oncologist and saying, how was I alive? And I can still see him. I can still see it. He kind of put his head down and shook his head no, and then lifted his head up and looked at me and he said, I don't know, because you shouldn't have been. Which said to me, God's not done with me yet. When I die, where I die, how I die, way above my pay grade. Don't spend a lot of time worrying about that.
What's the actual name of the melanoma you have?
It's called acrolitiginous malignant melanoma. Say that 3 times fast.
I couldn't say it once fast. Okay, so can you explain why that's so? My father, I think you know this. My father died from melanoma.
Yep.
The melanoma spread, went into his brain, his lymph nodes. He did like 30 days straight of full brain radiation. It was humbling to watch one of the most proud people I know get redo. Like, he walked with a strut, like he owned every room he walked in, and he was resorted to shuffling his feet and barely moving until eventually he died. It was awful, but that was melanoma. Like, what is the difference between the melanoma that you have and are battling and defeating versus the melanoma that most people know about?
Yeah, so most people think of melanoma as too much exposure to the sun,
Right.
and it affects the melon, the pigment in our skin. My type, acrolitiginous, has nothing to do with sun exposure. It appears on the bottom of the feet or the palms of the hands. There's an even rarer form that we were talking about before called ocular melanoma that appears in the eyes. And there's even another form that is incredibly rare that appears in your mucous membranes. So in your nose, in your mouth, in your anus, or something like that. It's still melanoma, but it is not brought on by too much exposure to the sun. And I'll give you kind of a funny story. When I was young, when I was a teenager growing up, and we had acne and things like that, my mother would take us to the dermatologist. And this was like the 1970s. Back in the 70s, they would put us under a sun lamp, get those UV rays to dry out your acne, which we know today is the reason you have melanoma. So, I mean, just in my lifetime, how far they have come with melanoma, because I was diagnosed in 2012. They told me if I got a miracle, I would live 5 years. More than likely, I would be dead in 2, because they had nothing to offer me other than surgery. If it was someplace, I don't know about your dad, someplace we can cut it out, we'll try to cut it out. But if it's someplace we can't, we just don't have anything to treat you with.
Jeez. All right, I'm going to ask you something, because you're on the motivational speaking circuit. You get to speak, and it's an honor. It is a privilege and a gift to have the opportunity to share your story. Like, if you get on stage, like, you did something to earn it, and it's typically it has something to do with an expertise or an overcoming. But I don't want to talk to you about that part. What I want to talk to you about is the moments before and after you go on stage.
Yeah, I mean, I got on stage usually because of somebody that I know or somebody like that. So for me, I do not want to let that person down.
Mhm.
I absolutely want to come with my A game. And I do. And I'm in a wheelchair now and I'm missing a leg and things like that. So wherever I go with my wife. My wife takes me, she helps me out, she does all this kind of stuff. And I always, I kind of practice on her. It's like, all right, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And she is, again, faith, family, and friends. She is like, nah, no, not feeling that one. Or yeah, that's really good. You should develop that and things like that. So I go on stage thinking I want to do the absolute best, but it's not about me. It's about the people that I'm trying to make their lives better. It's, if you go up there and say, well, here, let me tell you my story and look how great I am. Look what I've overcome. You turn people off. They don't, I mean, I hate to say this, but people are narcissistic. They want you to tell them about yourself. They are. You want to tell them about yourself. That's fine. But you've got to give them part of yourself. You've got to be authentic. You've got to be vulnerable. You got to say, look, here's something that's worked for me. I don't have all the answers. I don't know. And be genuine enough to say, if you want to ask me a question, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I can't help you. So that's kind of the before part. The after part is, and I pick myself apart. It's like, I've been on 600 podcasts since I started doing podcasting. I listen to every episode. What went right? What went wrong? How many times did I say, what stories can I tighten up? What other stories can I introduce? We learn by stories. We learn by telling stories, not just by giving facts and information. Giving facts and information is fine, but if you can tie it to a story, you're absolutely going to have the person remember what you said, as opposed to, well, let me tell you that, 1 out of 5 adults lie every day. Oh, that's great. Okay, fine. Oh,
what am I going to do with that?
Yeah, Terry said with that. But if you tie it to a story, the person will remember the story. And so I always, I debrief. And I did that as a SWAT team hostage negotiator. After every single call out we did, we went back and debriefed. What went right? What went wrong? What could we do better the next time? So that's kind of my before and after of speaking.
Well, the after I want to focus on, I want to ask you about is emotionally what, and I could be projecting this, I don't know, but you share when I speak, I'm sharing a part of me and a piece of me, and I'm letting people in to a very vulnerable, dark, scary, beautiful place. After I'm done, I feel wounded almost. Like I feel like I'm bare and naked and wounded. That's what it's like for me. And then I have to kind of go through this process of rebuilding myself back up as quickly as possible because of the interaction with the crowd afterwards. Yeah. That part is very, very challenging for me. For you, because you're sharing not just wisdom and inspiration and motivation, but you're sharing a piece of you as well. And our stories are different, but at the same time, what you're sharing is very personal. What is it like for you emotionally, and how do you keep yourself protected so that you can keep giving? Because when you give of yourself, you are emptying yourself where you don't have anything to give other people. Sometimes your family can be sacrificed in that, or friends, like something when you give of yourself, it's not like you have an endless amount to give. So how are you protecting yourself and keeping yourself healthy and full, I guess is the question.
Sure. And that's a great question. And I know when I'm done giving a talk, I'm usually spent, drained, exhausted, whatever you want to call it. I'm usually sweating. A lot of times I'll sweat through my shirt and things like that, just because it's almost like playing a sporting event or something like that. You're just not talking. You're engaging your body. You're tightening your core. You're doing all that kind of stuff that I did when I played basketball in college, and I'm stoked. it's like, I got to go take a shower, you know? Okay, deodorant, don't fail me now. You know? So, I mean, that's a huge part of it. But you hit on something incredibly important and something that I've been talking about a lot lately on podcasts. And it's the point you mentioned, emptying yourself out. And I think that's so powerful because I think so many people think that when they sort of get into life, you know, they get out of school, whether it's high school, college, or something beyond, and they get into life, that they're born empty. And their job should be then to fill themselves up. I got to get a great education. I got to get a great job, make a lot of money, drive the latest car, you know, have the latest iPhone, have a great family, and we tend to think that by filling ourselves up, we are somehow going to be fulfilled and happy. And Joshua, what I find in life is it's just the opposite. We're not born empty. We're born full. We're born with everything we need to be successful already inside of us. We just need to find what's there, pull it out, and use it to our benefit. So it's not about filling ourselves up. It's about what you just said. It's about, or life should be, I think, about emptying ourselves out with our gifts, with our unique gifts and talents, certainly for the betterment of ourselves, but also for the betterment of our family, of our friends, of our community, of our country, etc.
Ah, that's so good. Yeah, I'm a firm believer that our gifts and our talents have nothing to do with us. We just are blessed to get to use them. They are for other people. We can use them for ourselves, but that's where we get the selfish, the narcissistic. That's where we get the Hitlers of the world.
Yeah, I mean,
he was all gifted. I mean, that's a weird thing to say, but he had a lot. There's obviously a gift there, and he used it for all the wrong reasons. If he would have used it for good,
right,
he would have changed the world for the better.
Right.
You know, so it's not about us, and like that's such a beautiful. And one way that I helped kind of reframe the trauma and things like that I went through was realizing that it happened for me. Like when I got to a place that I could be grateful for all the hell that I went through, self-inflicted or not, but I could look at it like, yeah, I learned something from that. That made me better. That perfected me in this area, or that helped shape me. That gave me it gave me life in the end, is how I can look at it. And that is a beautiful place for me to be. And that's with I live with the consequences of my actions every day, having HIV and some of the other things that I have from just abusing my body and my health over the years. And the good Lord has blessed me to be able to rehabilitate my life and become healthy and have an amazing family, an amazing queen of a partner, and Jessica, and two beautiful kids. Like, God has been so good to me because I believe I found a way to find gratitude through the crap. For you, because you live with the consequences of, you didn't ask for the cancer, but you live with it every day. You live with the consequences of that cancer, of that thing. And that brings its own challenges every day. Do you ever, because I know that you're a grateful guy, there's no doubt about it, but do you ever get resentful towards what happened? And then if you do, how do you overcome that?
No. And I don't want your audience, you know, I mean, you're looking at me now. There's no S on my chest that do not have a cape and fly around with magical powers. You know, I mean, I'm a human being just like everybody else. But I remember when I got cancer, people would come up to me and they would be like, well, you got cancer, but that's really tough. Who do you blame? I'm like, what do you mean? Who do I blame? We have to blame somebody. I mean, people start down the road toward a goal or something like that, and then they butt up against an impediment. Something gets in their way, and they can't get over it, around it, or through it, so they quit. But we just don't quit. Now we got to blame somebody for it. We got to blame our parents or our station in life, or, you know, our boss, or whoever it ends up being. So people would be like, well, who do you blame? I said, I don't blame anybody because I got cancer. And then when people find out that you have a faith life, that you believe in something bigger than yourself, they're like, well, you must blame God. And I used to joke with him. I'd be like, no, I don't think God got up on a Tuesday morning, checked his to-do list and said, hey, Terry Tucker, cancer today. I don't believe that at all. But I do believe he's given me the courage, the strength, the motivation, the discipline to continue to move forward. And I'll say this about cancer. It has taught me a lot, but it's taught me two incredibly important things. One, I don't think you really know yourself until you've been tested by some form of adversity in life. And two, cancer's made me a better human being. It's made me appreciate the things that I have. It's made me realize just how stupid all the things that I used to try to control, try to deal with. I'll tell you a quick story. So when I was in college, I went to college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, which is a military college. And one year we had a president of the school by the name of James Stockdale. That name may or may not ring a bell for you. He was a naval aviator. He actually got shot down during the Vietnam War and spent 8 years at the infamous prisoner of war camp that they used to call the Unholy Hilton. And he actually won the Medal of Honor for everything he did while he was a prisoner of war. And Ross Perot, who ran for president back in the 1980s, picked Stockdale as his running mate. So anyway.
That guy.
Yeah.
Oh, now I know who you're talking about.
Exactly. I mean, when you put it in context, like, oh, I remember that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember being, he was the president of the college. I was a cadet. I did not have a lot of interaction with him. But I remember being at an event one time, and somebody asked him, who were the people that survived that prisoner of war camp, that brutality, that torture, that abuse? And he said, well, let me tell you who didn't survive. He said, it wasn't the big, strong, tall, tough guys that thought that they could handle any kind of abuse or torture. And this kind of surprised me. The other group, he said, that didn't survive were the optimists. He said those were the people who thought, well, we'll be rescued or let go by Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter. And Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter would come and go, and they wouldn't be rescued. And those people would die of a broken heart. He said the people that survived were the people that understood what they could control, which according to Stockdale was basically the air in our lungs and the thoughts in our mind. Everything else was at the discretion of the enemy. When they got beat, when they got mail, when they got food, when they got rest, everything was at the discretion of them. And I think the point there is we spend so much time trying to control things that are outside of our control. Understand what you can control in life and control that, and I promise you, you'll be a whole lot happier.
Very stoic.
Yeah, the Stockdale was a stoic. Yeah.
What? Oh, he was?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I've been learning about that the last 6 months, and yeah, let's talk about this. So for me, I came to this realization about 6 months ago that I used to have really horrific lows and different things, and I've struggled with mental health issues for majority of my life, and I'm getting on the other hand of it, on the other side of things, where I'm starting to become aware, so that I can get on top of it or stop it before it happens, and I become very, very self-aware. But one of the things that is new to me, which is kind of a surprise because I knew this of myself, is I'm very excitable. I'm like a little kid at Christmas all the time. I think of the movie Elf. And you know how excited he is? That is me. I'm like a little kid about anything that excites me. And it could be the smallest thing, that the sun is hitting the trees a certain way, or it could be anything, or an opportunity, or I meet somebody and I get excited because of the possibilities. And I get myself so elevated that the only possibility is to crash.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that my excitement and my rage have the same effect on me, the same negative effect on me afterwards. And that was a very I'm glad I figured it out, but it caused some very uncomfortableness in my life as I started to realize, well, how do I not get excited? Where is that balance? And what happened initially for me was I just started to detach. Detaching for me is not good, like disassociating. That caused that. So now I've kind of worked my way back in with I've been practicing stoicism and practicing learning to be silent and not talking much, which is great for a talk show host. But I'm practicing it. So I want to ask you, and it's been life-changing. It's changed my relationships. It's changed how I deal with people. It's changed how I receive information. It's been an amazing practice for me. But I want to ask you, because you were a hostage negotiator, correct?
Correct.
So I'm sure there's a lot of stoic principles in that as well. Is that a good guess?
Okay. That can be, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I want to ask you, in that kind of situation, when you have the most hostile of crazy possibilities, you don't know what's going to happen, tensions are super high, it's very unpredictable. For you in that situation, how do you keep yourself even killed, where you're not letting the situation affect you negatively as, oh my God, this is so sad. Oh, this is horrific. I can't believe all these murders happened or whatever it was. And then at the same time, how do you keep yourself from getting elevated to the point of wanting just to take the gun and stick it in the guy's head? And like, how do you keep yourself here?
Yeah. And you're right. And I mean, life for most of us is played out here in the middle. I mean, we remember the highs and lows. We remember the weddings and the birthdays and the graduations, and we remember the funerals and the illnesses and when we get let go from our jobs. But that's what we remember, because they're the extremes.
Yeah.
But life is lived in the middle. It's the day in, day out, hard, tough, ugly work that nobody sees where you become successful. It's not the ups, the up and the bottoms. It's the middle. And so part of the answer to your question is training. We trained a lot. We would train every month. We would train with a psychologist in a scenario-based kind of training where we would practice to be, I was the hostage, I was the hostage taker, I was the negotiator, whatever. So we would do a lot of practice. And then, as I mentioned before, the debrief. So, okay, we would sit back and, the psychologist may say to you, well, did you ever think this person might have been schizophrenic and off their medication? Nope, that never entered my mind. So it's that constant, the more you do, the better you get at it, the more tools you have in your toolbox to say, oh, this is for real now. Maybe this person is schizophrenic. Or, maybe they just got caught up in a bad situation or whatever it ended up being. So that was part of it. And the other thing that was incredibly difficult, incredibly exhausting as a negotiator. I mean, you think about it, you're sitting in a mobile home 2 blocks from the person, you've got a bathroom, you've got water, you got food, everything's great. Why are you exhausted when the negotiation is over? And the reason is because you're trying to connect with these people on an emotional level. What we used to always say is when we were kids growing up, we would go to the park and you would play on a seesaw or a teeter-totter. And what we would say is when we started negotiating with the person, their emotional brain was way up in the air and their rational brain was way down on the ground. And using different techniques like how and what questions. We would never ask people a why question, because a why question was, hey, Joshua, why did you do that? Oh, wait a minute. Is he accusing me? That sounds accusatory. I can get to the same information. What got us to this point, Joshua? By asking a much softer what question. So we would ask these questions. We would get them to burn off a lot of that emotional energy. So hopefully that teeter-totter was at equilibrium. And then for more discussions and things like that, we would get it to the point where their rational brain was way up on the top and their emotional brain was down on the ground. That's the time you can start talking about letting hostages go, putting the gun down, coming out. When they're yelling and screaming, you're not talking about coming out or anything like that. And so we all make better decisions when we use our rational brain versus our emotional brain. But the problem with us was I had to get down in the weeds with you. I had to get down in the mud with you. So if you said, if you're ranting and raving about your mother, and I make some comment like, you seem like you're a little upset with your mother, I totally missed it. No, you're pissed as heck at your mother. That's where you got to go with those people. You've got to get down on their emotional level. Yes, I hate my mother. She's such a, and they would go off on a million different, expletives. And like I said, if you missed it and said, "Oh, you seem a little upset," no, I'm furious. I'm pissed off. I'm all that. And and so again, I'm engaged in the core. I'm doing all that kind of stuff. And 4 hours later, it's like, oh my God, I'm exhausted because you were down in the weeds with these people, but you had to do that because the overarching thing that we did as negotiators, just like you do with people you work with, you do with your spouse, you do with your kids, is trust. We're trying to build trust with another human being who we have never met before and get them to tell us potentially some of the most delicate, embarrassing things that have happened or going on in their life, to get them to a point where they trust us. Now, for example, I could say, you could say something to me and I could say, well, Joshua, how am I supposed to do that? That's what I might say back to you. Now, what did I just do? One, I just lobbed the ball back into your court. And two, now I've gotten you to engage with me to help get you out safely, because you're thinking, okay, well, how's he supposed to do it? Now you're engaged to get yourself out. And I just asked one simple question. So those were some of the techniques that we would use.
Wow. So I don't know if this question will make sense, but I feel led to ask, so I'm going to ask. Sure. What did you learn about truth from hostage negotiations?
I mean, I've always felt that integrity was one of the most important things you had as a police officer. I mean, you're around people. I mean, you're around a car. It's your office. Nobody knows what you're going to do, or, you could do stupid stuff. And there are people I worked with who did some incredibly stupid stuff. But one of the things we did as negotiators is we never lied to somebody. People would say to us, I'll come out, but you got to promise me that I'm not going to go to jail. And we would have to say, I'm sorry, when you come out, you are going to go to jail. And then we would try to deflect the conversation to something that was more pleasant. And the reason we did that was not because, we were altruistic or, saints or anything. It was simply the fact that there was a good chance, and this happened several times. I did this for 4.5 years, that a year from now, 2 years from now, we would be right back negotiating with that exact same person about the exact same issue. Again, I talked about, maybe he had a huge fight with his mother and he got so upset that he grabbed the gun and he barricaded himself. Well, mom's still around. Mom's still pushing his buttons. So 2 years from now, we're back negotiating. And
wow.
If he ever thought, hey, Terry, last time you lied to me. Well, what happened? What if your wife did something that caused that trust relationship, or your kids did something that caused that trust relationship to break? Now, all of a sudden, I'm no good as a negotiator. You got to bring in another negotiator to talk to this guy because he doesn't trust me anymore. And there's no way I'm going to be able to build back that trust in, even hours, even days. Somebody, really hurts you, breaks your trust. I mean, it said, I may forgive you, but I'm probably not going to forget about this incident.
Wow. Okay. So when I was in my debauchery phase of my first 36 years of life, I for some reason dated a lot of psychiatrists. I don't know why, because it made no sense. You think they would have known to stay away from me, but nonetheless, one of the most frustrating things about dating a psychologist or psychiatrist was that in the middle of a conversation, I felt like, oh my God, they're treating me like a client now. They're doing their thing on me. So I want to ask you, in your relationship with your wife, how does she ever ask you, like, are you doing that thing to me right now? Or does she ever do that to you?
You know by my laugh, you know the answer is yes. So one of the things we used to do was called parroting. We called it parroting. It's called mirroring now. But so we would let you talk. And then we would either repeat back to you the last 2 or 3 words that you said, or the most important 1 or 2 words that you said. And then we would go silent. And we would be silent for at least 5 seconds. And 5 seconds is a long time. We don't like silence in our communication. So it would get the other person to start again. And I did this. I was having a pre-call with somebody about doing a podcast, and I thought, I'm going to try this and just see. And I did. I mean, they said something, and then I just parroted back the last two words they said. And then they just kept talking. And then I parroted back the last 3 words that they said. And then they just kept talking. And so it's an effective tool to use, especially if you think someone's lying or something like that. You can get to them, and it's amazing. You know, about 33% of adults lie habitually. It's 1 in 5 when it comes to no, it's the opposite. It's 1 in 3 for college kids. It's 1 in 5 for adults. Wow. And we're terrible at detecting lies. We're about a 50-50 shot at somebody's lying to me or somebody's telling me the truth. So we're not real good at being able to detect lies. But that was another thing. I mean, was somebody lying to us? You know, I mean, we would spend sometimes hours over here talking to somebody about something when the real issue, the real problem, the real reason we were there was over here, and they didn't trust us enough to talk about what was really the reason that their house was surrounded by the police and they were talking to us. So, yeah, I mean, yes, I used it. But the funny thing about it was, you know, my wife and I have a daughter, and I know all this stuff. But then when our daughter would, like, you know, take her milk glass and just tip it over and dump it all over the floor, what happened? What engaged for me? The emotional part of it. Sure. And now all of a sudden I'm reacting with my emotional brain, not my rational brain. And it's like, you're an idiot. You're a hostage negotiator. You're people that want to kill themselves, and yet your 8-year-old daughter is driving you nuts. You know. So.
What is that about, though? Because that's a real life thing. I can think of, when it comes to what I'm good at and how I get to work with people, sometimes when it comes to doing that with Jessica or the kids, it's like I don't even know how to do any of that I could do for other people. Is it that love makes us stupid and forget, or love makes us too emotional? What do you think that's all about?
I think it's the emotion part of it. You know, when I'm talking to somebody, you know, who's barricaded or something like that, I don't know them. I don't have any emotional attachment to them. And I try to, I mean, like I said, you have that balance, because you need to get down in the weeds with them. You got to make sure they understand that you realize that they are furious at their mother. But at the same time, I'm not furious at their mother. I'm not furious at them. I'm like, I'm getting double time and a half because you decided to barricade yourself with a gun. So this is great for me financially, but I don't have that emotional connection because I don't know the person.
Yeah.
Whereas with your wife or your daughter or your kids or whatever, you've got that emotional connection. And like I said, we make better decisions with our rational brains than we do with our emotional brains.
That seems like a cruel joke that it's set up that way, because it just doesn't even seem fair. Like, I got to figure this out, because I just forget everything I work on with my coach. I mean, I forget it all. Forget about being stoic. Forget about contemplating. Forget about thinking before I talk. I forget everything sometimes. It's unbelievable. I like to figure this out. Okay, so
can I just add one thing to that?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so the emotions are what separate us from the other animals. So it's important to have those, and it's important not to cut those off. It's important to feel. You gotta feel. You know, and it's okay to feel. You know, stoicism is not so much, I think, the absence of feeling. It's trying to understand the feelings as they come about, and what's the best use of those feelings for you in your life at that point in time. So don't think that, for people that are listening to us, stoicism is, I just don't feel anything. I have no emotions whatsoever. You can't be like that. You're a human being. You were given emotions for a reason. That's what separates us from, the animals and things like that.
Well, actually, hold on. I want to add to what you just said, because you're 100% right. That was kind of a very confusing thing for me, learning stoicism, but I needed to I needed to be able to pull down some of my emotion.
Right.
But the part that is working for me right now, I created a new trigger for my brain that, and again, I need more practice. I've got some real world practice with this I get to do. But I was listening to a former CIA guy talk, and he was talking about, some of the situations that they get in, and talking about perception, how we perceive versus what's actually real. But we all make I think as a whole, our perceptions a lot of times are just not based in reality, or at least the first perceptions. So I heard him talk about how he broke that habit or something like that. He, instead of going with what his first thought, he found himself, and really what it equated to was a form of empathy. But he tried to look at every other scenario possible rather than what he thought. And he made it all about that other person. Like, okay, what's making them real? What's really going on? Why are they telling me to take a long walk off a short pier? Why are they cursing me out? Why are they saying this? Why are they saying that? But to look at it more, and he didn't use the word empathy, but to me, that's what it was saying, was that I got to try to put myself in their shoes to understand. And that part has allowed me to become more empathetic with people. That's been a new thing. And it's taken me the normal emotions that I would have towards a situation where I would try to make it about me. It's reversed that a little bit. But here's my question. If we allow ourselves to be too empathetic, do we set ourselves up for more betrayal or more hurt and more pain?
I guess potentially we do. One of the things that we used as negotiators was what was called tactical empathy, which was help me to understand where you're coming from. Again, help me to understand it. I'm not going to necessarily agree with it. I mean, if I'm talking to a homicide suspect who's just shot 3 people, I'm not going to, you were perfectly justified for doing that. But help me to understand where you're coming from. What got you to do that? What made you do that? Because what that does is it creates trust. Mm-hmm. Oh, Terry gets me. He understands now. Again, not agreeing, but Terry understands me now. Oh, okay, we're building trust. That was an incredibly important thing that we did, was tactical empathy. And again, I want to understand it. I'm not going to agree with it, and I'm not emotionally invested in it. I'm really sorry that you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison, or you're going to decide to shoot yourself tonight. That's going to be your decision, but I'm not emotionally invested in it. What you're talking about are people that we are emotionally invested in. And can I get in the weeds with you? Can help me to understand, oh, you lost your husband. Oh, tell me about that. Oh, God, that must have been horrible. That's just, I was thinking of a nurse friend of mine who lost her husband and told me this story. And I was like, I really did feel for her. Oh, how horrible. You had to take care of him. You were a minister before this. You lost your husband, and you changed your purpose in life to become a nurse and provide infusion therapy to cancer patients like me. I'm the lucky one here. Yeah. But that empathy, you might open your heart up, you might open your soul up to get hurt. But in all honesty, I'd rather risk getting hurt and connect with those people than just, kind of have that line in the sand where, nope, not going over that, not gonna put myself out there, not gonna bare my soul to you because you might hurt me. You might, but if you do, then hopefully I will learn something from that. I remember the quote from Nelson Mandela, former president of South Africa, who said, "I never lose. I either learn or I win."
I like that one. I love that quote. It's one of my favorite ones. So what are you doing now? Like, if so the last time you have your book and you're speaking, but it always seems like you're creating something new. What are you doing now?
Yeah, I'm actually compiling another book. Haven't started writing, kind of putting the stories together that I want to include in the book. I actually was just in a book that these two women wrote over in Europe. I was just asked to write a chapter about my cancer story for another book that's coming out. So I'm doing a lot of writing and things right now. Still doing the podcast, still going on and telling a little bit about my story and what I learned and trying to help people. And then still being treated. I'm treated every 3 weeks for an entire week at the hospital. So I'm kind of, as my dad used to say, off the air during that week. And then I've got 2 weeks off and, like I said, doing a lot of writing, doing a lot of podcasting, just spending my time trying to make a difference.
Man, I've actually watched a couple of your podcasts that you've done recently, and you just deliver every time. You're like the world's greatest podcast guest. I think I'm kind of curious what would happen if you started your own podcast, because I mean, you are just a great guest. I mean, you just bring it every time, and I don't even know what I would have you back for, but you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Anytime you want to promote something, you can come back, because I love talking to you. I always leave inspired. I'd like for you to take the last words. Please plug your book, plug your website, plug anything you want, social media, and you can actually and take the last words. Anything that's on your heart you want to share, the floor is yours.
Okay, so my website is motivationalcheck.com. I put up a thought for the day every day there. I put up the Monday morning motivational message. I have recommendations for books to read, videos to watch. You can leave me a message. That's all at motivationalcheck.com. Let me, I'm trying to decide. I think I told the other story. I'll tell you this story. Had a nurse recently ask me what it was like to have my foot amputated in 2018 and then to have my leg amputated in 2020. And Joshua, I told her, I said, it hasn't been easy. I'm 6'8" tall, so learning to walk again, falling is not an option. You kind of get hurt from this height, so it's not something, that I do. But what I told her was, cancer can take all my physical faculties, but it can't touch my mind, it can't touch my heart, and it can't touch my soul. And that's who I am. That's who you are. That's who everybody's listening to us is. And we spend so much time working on this body. We go to the gym, we eat right, we get enough rest, we reduce stress, we do all those things. And I'm absolutely not telling you not to do those things. You absolutely should. But what I am suggesting is maybe every day, spend a little more time on who you really are, your heart, your mind, and your soul. We know this body's going to die. We know it's going to decay and go away. But your heart, your mind, and your soul, I believe those things are eternal, and I do not believe we spend nearly as much time working on them as we should.
Those are the best last words ever spoken on this program. Mr. Tucker, God bless you. Thank you for the human that you are and all that you do. You're an inspiration to me and many others. Thank you so much.
Well, Joshua, thanks for having me on. I enjoyed talking with you.
Talk to you soon.
Take care.